Okay, so this is kind of like an interview style. We're going to run through some questions, and then, of course, if there's any questions from the audience at the end, we can jump right to it. But our first place to start is probably finding out who David is, a bit more about his role, his experience, and I'm going to hand it over to David to introduce himself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. I'm very excited to be here. Heard a lot of great things this morning. Looking forward to the rest of the day as well. So, as Chris mentioned, my name is David Lee. I'm a vice president and product manager at Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse is a major European bank based in Switzerland, and I've been with Credit Suisse for 8 years. Before Credit Suisse, I had a career in technology. I was an application developer for many years. And when I joined Credit Suisse, I started in data management and data modeling, and then went into the area and the team that I'm in now. I've been a product manager for the last 2.5 years, specifically supporting an initiative in the employee compliance area.
Nice, and I've asked this question hundreds of times, and that's no exaggeration, throughout our kind of conference series, and I've got hundreds of different answers, so it's always interesting to kind of hear different perspectives of what digital transformation actually means to individuals. So what does it mean to you, and how does it play a part in your role?
Yeah, digital transformation is, I think, a very big term, and as you say, it means a lot of different things to different people. Definitely, it is the adoption of new technology, it's new processes and things, but I think, moreover, it's a change in culture. It's a change in the way that people approach the idea of implementing new software and new systems. And I think a change in culture really indicates a change in behavior, and perhaps it's much more difficult than adopting new technology or new system.
And much of the focus this morning and then later in the day revolves around kind of 3 core focus areas of transformation: people, technology and process. We've heard quite a lot about people, and we just alluded to kind of people contributes there. What contributes to kind of success within digital transformation and of course innovation?
So I think it would be good to talk about my experience as a technology person before I was introduced to digital transformation or the agile methodology. So as I said, I was a application developer for many years in the banking industry, and essentially we used the waterfall method, and I didn't realize it was called waterfall when we were using it. And essentially, the typical situation is you bring in very high-paid consultants for a short period of time. They collect requirements, they do the analysis, they look at the processes, they interview the stakeholders, and they come up with a whole bunch of documentation, system documentation, functional documentation, and in particular something called the BRD. It's a business requirements documentation. Many of you, I can see your heads shaking, you understand what I'm talking about, you've been there. And the BRD essentially is generally several hundred pages long. It details in minute details the who, what, where, and when. Oftentimes it's married with a project plan, a Microsoft project plan perhaps, and it runs generally from 6 to 18 months. Once it's established, it would be promulgated, approved, authorized, and generally when you come to that point, it's already outdated. Right? What you've got is something which the developers are happy with because everything is basically specified in that document. They can go to their own little cubicle and start working. They don't have to interact with other people. And so that was the traditional, conventional way, at least from my point of view, the way that we would create new systems and new software. And with the agile methodology, and I'll speak specifically about my team or my group, we set up the process of new development in sprints. So our sprints are 3 weeks in length, and we basically work with the users to try to define what is the prioritization. And typically it would be between 6 to 8 different stories or features, and we commit to 3 weeks of doing that, and then we provide a demo at the end. So it's a little bit short term, but the advantage is that we are able to switch, to pivot based on changing circumstances. If there are changes in the regulation, changes in organization, changes in internal regulations or internal audit, we're able to switch and pivot much more easily. So that's good.
And then we often hear at the conferences and from our speakers about the successes, about how well the digital transformation has gone, which is natural. We want to share success stories and obviously make sure we're representing kind of success on a stage. But what are the kind of major pitfalls for digital transformation projects, and what are some of the major challenges faced for organisations in their efforts? We read a lot in media about digital transformation failure rates being so high. We don't really hear about too much kind of confidence. What's your take on that?
So as I said, Agile methodology is the methodology that we're using, that we seem to find to be the most successful. And I don't advocate necessarily one particular methodology. Not one model will fit every situation, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. And certainly Agile is not perfect. And just reflecting on my experience with Agile methodology, I mean, one of the things which is a hallmark is the commitment and time required by your key stakeholders, right? So compared to waterfall, there's much more of a time commitment. There are more engagements, there are more calls, there are more meetings. I mean, especially at the discovery stage or the launch of the product, you want to be able to have the ability to work with the users and to have them engaged, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And sometimes, business people don't have that extra time and effort. Another thing I'll mention is just talking about the change in culture. We want to have a common vision. We want to have an understanding of what the goal is in terms of implementing a particular initiative or product. And it's sometimes difficult to get individuals together in a room and to have that shared common vision. So it's one of the soft skills, which is to be able to convince and to persuade individuals to see the value, let's say, of an agile methodology instead of waterfall or some other method.
And then you've just said you've utilised kind of lean agile development approaches within your role. Can you just tell us a bit more about what that entails and perhaps kind of reflect on the successes of implementing such?
Yeah, I mean, agile, I think there are a couple things which are important in terms of what I feel are successful factors, and just kind of at the risk of repeating some of the things I mentioned. So the people aspect is very important. You need to have key stakeholders and business sponsors who are on your side, who are motivated, who can support you. If you don't have the support of those individuals, then success is very unlikely. You also have to have the right mix of talent. So in your technical squad, in your design team, and the members of my team from Credit Suisse here, design team members and technical, you need to have the right mix of individuals and the right personalities as well as the right skill set. And then finally, perhaps, is the technology, making sure that you're using the correct technology. And we use a lot of, besides the technology that's used by IT in terms of developing the actual product, we have technologies which are used in our design thinking, and in particular in visualization, or when we engage with the end user, and something that we do as one of our exercises, basically usability testing. And what that means is we go out to the user community and we take a proposed feature and we basically show the feature and get their feedback and insights. So we use certain visualization tools such as Sketch, Envision, Mural, which allows the user to be able to see the product before the actual development.
I just want to go back on something you said about kind of the people side of Agile and the approach taken as kind of the work from home change and hybrid workplace kind of exasperated the Agile approach, and how much does that change that? Because obviously Agile is about sticking to kind of fundamentals, but how much has that got to be flexible in a way?
I think that's a really relevant question. So the project that we worked on actually was kicked off in February of 2020, and the pandemic, as everyone knows, started in March. So we went essentially from working in the office to working at home on Zoom or through other means in which it was remote. And I have to say that our team, and maybe this is true with many of your teams as well, it's very international. So we have members, not necessarily in New York. We have members in Pune, we have members in Zurich, we have members in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we have a large technical staff as well. So from that point of view, it really didn't matter where they were located. It could have been in Timbuktu, essentially. And what we found was that people were not just surviving during the pandemic, they were actually thriving in this environment. So it was a little bit kind of a mixed blessing, let's say.
And then you've partnered with different stakeholders across the program as part of your transformation efforts. How important is it to have a coherent strategy in place and to ensure everyone is on board?
Right. So I think the human aspect of Agile methodology can't be underestimated. It's really important that you are able to partner and collaborate with all levels of stakeholders in your organization, whether they're business or functional users, whether they're technical staff, designers, or the end user.
And you just mentioned the international aspect there. How difficult is it to kind of align stakeholders from kind of a global organisation and make sure everyone's on board? Obviously, executing transformation or any kind of strategy is about alignment, communication, and things like that. Is it difficult to do in an international team?
I think that's a really good question. I haven't really reflected on that particular part of it, but I think any organization has their own particular culture, apart from the national culture or local culture. And I think we're able to tap into the fact that Credit Suisse or any other organization has a particular culture that we're relying on, and that will be used essentially to be able to reach out to international locations and do the work that we needed to do.
Nice. And then finally, can you offer any kind of tips and tricks to the audience on leading successful change? Any lessons learned from your side that you can share?
Yeah. So I wrote down a number of one-liners on these cards, which I'd like to share with everybody. I think some of these you might have heard of before, and some are my kind of sayings or mantras. One thing I say quite often is start early, start small. Right? If you have if you know a particular milestone coming up, don't wait till tomorrow. Start early, start small. Another one, which is quite common, is fail fast, learn quickly. So what that means to me is if you are in the middle of your sprint and you realize something is not working, don't be macho about it. Don't power through. Admit, call it out, switch, and pivot. This is a common one. Empathize with your end user. Try to understand their point of view. Try to understand what it looks like, feels like in their shoes. In terms of team dynamics, I work with a technical team who is basically scattered in different parts of the world. In India, in Raleigh, North Carolina, some people in Zurich. It is important to maintain a good relationship with your coworkers. Again, that goes without saying, but I would say never underestimate the power of kindness.
Thank you, David.